Hello, and welcome to episode 15 of the Product Biz Podcast, How to Overcome Failure or the Fear of Failing. So if you're a small business owner, and if you've been listening to this podcast, then you know that risks are required to grow. We have to try new things. We have to step out of our comfort zone. We have to go all in, even if we're scared out of our mind for what we're about to do. But what happens when we go all in and it doesn't work out how we expected? What happens when the results aren't what we want? What happens when we fail? What happens when we get a rejection? If you've ever gone through any of these situations, then this episode will be diving into how to quickly bounce back, how to view failures in a different way, how to continue to show up for your business when your business needs it the most. And I'm so excited to have you here inside episode 15 of the Product Biz Podcast. Are you ready to go behind the scenes and learn what it really takes to create consistent sales each and every month with your handmade small business? Join me, Monica Little, self-taught multiple six-figure small business owner and your product business coach, as I give you the insight and inspiration on how to better run your business and increase your sales in ways that you may not have even been aware of, so that your business can truly become what you knew it could be back when you first started. Learn how to let go of perfection, overcome the fear of failure that is holding you back, and finally start taking action so that you walk away feeling like you've cracked the code on how to run a successful small business. You're listening to the Product Biz Podcast. So I wanted to start off, as always, with the listener of the week. And this week, the review I'm reading is from Kelly. And what she says is, I'm learning so much. I love listening to Monica's podcast as a handmade small business owner. She offers so many tangible tips within her episodes that have helped me to believe in and grow my small business. Episode 2 was very helpful as she discusses the power of integrity in using a habit tracker. I love this concept and will begin to use one. I can relate to so many of the stories she tells about running her own handmade business. Thank you, Monica, for all of these episodes. I cannot wait to listen to more. Thank you so much, Kelly. I appreciate this review more than you know. And Kelly is one of my Product Biz Academy members. So to be able to support you through this podcast as well just means the world to me. And episode 2 is probably one of my favorites. It really dives into how we can build integrity in ourselves, which is basically building belief in ourselves. And a lot of the times what happens is we don't push towards our goals, not because we're not able to, not because we don't have the skills, not because someone's smarter or better or more knowledgeable than us. A lot of the times what happens is we don't push towards our goals because we just don't believe in ourselves, in our own capability to achieve these dreams. But what I hope to inspire you through the Product Biz Podcast is for you to realize that you are capable and for you to overcome these mindset limiting beliefs, and so you can embody this person who believes in yourself to the point that you show up for your business each and every day. And this relates so much to what we are talking about today. So thank you so much, Kelly. Please send me a DM on Instagram and I will send you a freebie in the mail. And for you listening too, if you would like to be a listener of the week, just leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. And if I read your review during an upcoming episode, you will get a freebie in the mail. I have these super cute gold sparkly small business owner keychains, some hot pink Product Biz Academy pens, some stickers that say dream big. So just some really motivating and inspiring swag for you. So please go to ratethispodcast.com/the Product Biz Podcast, and it will give you step-by-step instructions on how to leave a review depending on what platform you are listening on. So thank you for that. I appreciate it so much. So I want to start this episode with a story, but a little bit different of a story. Normally I start with a story of my experience that really relates to the episode, but this story is still super relevant, but I hope it shows how I want to portray the Product Biz Podcast to you and how our relationship is and how I hope you are getting benefit out of the information that I'm sharing with you today. So this story goes back a couple weeks ago, about 3 weeks ago. I decided to start going to physical therapy, specifically because I've had a little bit of tightness in my quad, my IT band, my hip flexor. And I really want to make sure now that I'm 31 that I'm taking care of myself as I continue to get older. I love going to the gym. I love doing group classes. I love yoga. I love sprinting on the treadmill. I love busting my ass at group classes. But I also realize that as I get older, I need to make sure that I'm taking care of myself because I can't treat my body like I'm 21 or like I'm 16. So I started going to a physical therapist to just make sure everything is aligned. I'm doing the best that I can as I continue to get older. I don't want to be like 40 or 50 years old with like all these aches and pains. And that really, in my opinion, starts with taking care of yourself now. So I happened to stumble upon this physical therapist, and I'm a huge believer of synchronicities and things happening for a reason. If you're super conscious to it, you will notice all the synchronicities, all the signs, all the things that you can manifest. You can just notice this crazy abundant world that we're in and how everything pieces together. And I remember a few months ago, I watched the Tom Brady documentary on Hulu, I think it is, which if you haven't watched it, it is so good. And I love thinking of top athletes and how they treat their athletic career and how that relates to business, because there are so many similarities. And after I watched this Tom Brady documentary, he talked about how he had this like really holistic Chinese medicine, alternative medicine doctor and a physical therapist that would help him through all of his problems. And after I watched that, I'm like, you know what? That's really what I want, because I've been to traditional chiropractors in the past just for small aches and pains, and they either like brushed off what I was saying or put me on this like table with my neck hanging over it and said that will fix your problems. And ultimately I just didn't feel like they were really listening or really cared to what I was experiencing. So when I watched this Tom Brady documentary, I'm like, that's what I want, like holistic, alternative Chinese medicine, something that's more in tune to the body instead of just trying to mask these symptoms with, cracking my back and then telling me to leave 5 minutes later. So ever since watching that, I've been just kind of thinking about it. And I happened to, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, just casually walked by this physical therapy place that literally was like exactly what I asked for. It says Reiki on it. It says holistic nutrition and fitness. It has like some Chinese symbols. It was just like everything that I wanted. And I knew that this was a place that I needed to go for the physical therapy and just like the small aches and pains that I was experiencing. And super funny, talking about synchronicities, right around that time, my quad started to really hurt too. And I was like, okay, my quad is hurting and I stumbled upon this place. So it's like a double reason to reach out and go to this physical therapist. So I've been going once a week the past 3 weeks, and it has just been like amazing. It's the best physical therapist I've been to, and he's just extremely knowledgeable, and it's such a great experience. But one thing that he said really stuck with me, and as soon as he said it, I'm like, oh my gosh, that is what I really hope I'm portraying to everyone listening to their Product Biz podcast, everyone who's in my world in Product Biz Academy or Etsy Algorithm Secrets. And I was telling him how I've been, going to Studio 3 6 days a week for the last year. 3 of those days are very athletic yoga, and the other 3 days are high intensity sprints, row machine, weights, burpees, all sorts of just high intensity workouts. And I've been seeing him once a week for the past 3 weeks. And what he said to me last week, he's like, what I really want you to think of our sessions as is this is your practice. When you're at physical therapy, this is your practice. This is making sure your form is right. This is making sure your mindset is right, because I talked to him a lot about mindset. This is making sure what you're doing is setting you up for success. And then when you go to Studio 3 and you're doing these really athletic classes and you're sprinting and you're doing high intensity workouts, that's the game. That's like where you go all out, but you have to have practice in between those games. You have to, because otherwise, and this is, that's what he said. So this is me kind of extrapolating on that. But otherwise, if you just show up to a game every single day, like that's going to get tiring, right? That's going to be really hard. You have to have practice in it. You have to have times where you make sure that your alignment, your body, your mindset, everything is setting you up for success. So as soon as he said that, I thought about the podcast, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's what this podcast is. This podcast is practice. This podcast is making sure your business is in alignment. This podcast is making sure your mindset is right for your business. But then what you do after you listen to this podcast, how you show up for your business, what you do on a daily basis, that's the game. And when that clicked for me, I was like, oh my gosh, that just makes complete sense. And I hope people realize that, because I'm hopefully helping you with mindset and some strategy on business and just overcoming certain limiting beliefs. But it doesn't end there, right? Like, you have to actually go and act on it. You have to go and actually make some moves. You have to actually go and do something different. You have to actually go and invest in your business in one way or another. And that's the game. And that's where you actually show up for yourself and for your business. And that's where you start to make wins, and you start to see amazing progress, and you start to reach those results and those goals and those dreams that you have for your business. So when he said that, I was just like, oh my gosh, that is everything that I hope I embody with the people who I touch through this podcast, that this is a practice, but then you got to show up for your game, and you got to take this and bring it to reality. You can really take it one step further and think through about like the point of a coach, right? When you think through an athlete, they have a coach who helps them at practice, but that coach is also there during game time. On those big games, when they're making those big moves, when they're in the playoffs or when they're in the championship, you have a coach there that's guiding them. So it's not only a coach who's there in practice, during practice, making you do drills, making sure everything is progressing and people are getting better and better and developing skills and becoming faster and more agile and just getting stronger in their game. It's not only a coach who's there during practice helping to make sure that's happening, but it's also a coach who's there game time. And what I want to remind you of too is how important it is to have a coach for your business. Because we can have practice here together and we can talk through mindset and strategy and how to make sure you're showing up for your business. But if you also have someone who's actually there during the game, when you're out there trying to grow your business in real life, in reality, taking what you learn here and applying it, if you have a coach to guide you during the game too, that is when you make some massive moves. And you can only imagine if there is a basketball team who only has a coach during practice. Well, as soon as they get to a game, they're going to be running around in circles, not knowing if they're doing the right thing, remembering a couple things that the coach said, remembering a couple plays, remembering a couple of specific cues that they should look for when the other team does something, they should do this. But what you really need is that coach on the sidelines that has that bird's eye view of what's going on, that can see the blind spots, that can call out certain things, that can make those strategic changes and really help the team to win. And that is in total how I see the Product Biz Podcast, which is your practice. And then if you ever decide to sign up for Etsy Algorithm Secrets or Product Biz Academy, that's the game. That's where I'm there as a coach helping you along the game. And you are, of course, more than welcome to play the game on your own. But just think about how much further you would be if you had a coach that was there with you. So that is just what I wanted to start off with. Thank you for listening to that little tangent. It just really clicked to me when I was talking to my physical therapist about that. And I just knew I had to start with that. And it's super interesting because today's topic will have some more sports analogies. I love relating to business to sports because there's so many things, especially when you think about athletes' mindsets of winning a game and how that relates to winning a business, running a business too. So today's topic, we are talking about, what do I do if I fail? What happens if I give my all into something and it just doesn't go my way? What if I spend all of this time on this new project? What if I do something extremely out of my comfort zone? What if I post a reel and I'm just not confident in it and it doesn't go my way? It doesn't bring me the results I want. I don't get a ton of sales from it. I don't get a ton of likes or views from it. What happens at that point in time? And I always want to level set with you to say that, number one, failure, quote unquote, is going to happen. It is inevitable in our businesses because that is essentially how we try new things, how we show up, how we do something different. And we're going to have some losses along the way, 100%, totally normal. But the first thing that I want to mention about when you feel like you're facing a failure is this concept of really disassociating ourselves from the results. So it's really interesting. In my one-on-one check-in with Daisy and Diana, we were talking about this. And we were talking about how you put your all into something, and then what if it fails, and then we internalize it. And then we start to think, okay, well, I'm a failure. My products aren't good enough. I did something wrong. This didn't work because of me. This didn't work because of my products. This didn't work because something is wrong with me. Something is wrong with my business. And we start to carry this around as a sign of who we are, that this failure is us, that we become this failure. And the very first thing I want to remind you is, number one, we are going to have losses in our business. Not every single thing is going to always go our way. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again, like if running a business was easy, everyone would be doing it. If running a business was as simple as everything that you try is a home run, everything you try is a win, everything that you try is a grand slam, everyone would be doing it. Everyone would be so successful. There would be 10 million times more small businesses out there in the world. But it's hard on purpose. It's hard because it weeds out the people who don't really want it. It's hard because it weeds out the people who won't do things that are uncomfortable. The people who, after they have a loss, they give up. They're unable to pick themselves back up to try another thing. So failures, losses, they are going to happen. But what I want you to do when you feel like you're in this spot of, oh my gosh, I just tried something new and I don't know if it's going to work, or I'm even too scared to try this because what if it doesn't work out? What I want you to do is to really focus on disassociating from the results. And this is a lot easier said than done, right? But we need to remember that everything is a learning experience. Every single thing that we try is something that we are growing from and becoming better from. And in the very, very, very first episode of the Product Biz Podcast, I talked about this episode from Brooke Castillo that I heard, and she does a phenomenal job of explaining this, that it's not about how many wins you have. If you are a business owner and you are only looking at the number of wins you have as your measure of success, then you're doing it wrong. It's not about how many wins you have. It's about how many wins and how many losses you have, because the losses show that you're learning. The losses show that you're growing. The losses show that you're picking yourself back up and trying something new. The losses show that you are growing and becoming a better business owner. And if you're not taking any risks, if you don't have any losses, then really what it is you're not growing. So we should be celebrating every single loss that we have and really being grateful for it and excited for it, instead of holding it down as something that weighs us down, that we're not good enough, that we are never going to be successful. So it's about how many wins and losses that you have. And I gave this example to Diana and Daisy when we were talking about it. We think about, like, what if I'm a failure? What if I fail? Well, I want you to answer this question. Which basketball team is the quote unquote failure in this scenario? We have a team that's 5-10. They won 5 games, they lost 10 games. Or you have a team that's 0-0. They never ended up showing up on the court. They were too scared to show up. They were too scared to put their skin in the game. They were too scared to leave practice. All they were doing was practice, but they were too scared to actually show up for the game. Which one would you call a failure? Not the one that's 5-10, even though they've lost double the amount that they've won. They're not a failure in this situation. They're actually doing phenomenal. They are going to games, playing. Even if they lose, they go back to practice and they try just as hard to show up to the next game to be a better version of themselves. That team is winning 100%. But a lot of the times we would say, oh, that, maybe that team is a failure, that team's not successful. But in this situation, the team that truly lost is the one that never showed up, the one that never believed themselves. And the team that won is the one that's 5-10. The team that won is the one with a losing record. So we have to realize that we're going to have some losses. But it's not about how many wins you have. It's about how many wins and losses you have. It's about picking yourself back up and going all in, even though you have no proof to actually do that. And that is what really separates people, small business owners who are successful versus small business owners who may struggle to really step out of their comfort zone and try something new. And of course, there's so many real life examples of this too, if we step away from the basketball analogy. But if you think about wins and losses, there's so many great learning experiences you can have from running a small business. And I encourage all of my clients that every single thing you do, it's a test. Like that's how you should look at everything you do. When you put something on Instagram stories, it's a test. I'm just testing out if this messaging works. When you post an Instagram reel, oh, it's just a test. I'm just seeing, if people relate to this or not. And you know what? If they don't, let's reiterate. Let's try something new. Let's adjust the wording on the reel. Let's adjust the caption. Let's adjust how we speak about our products. Every single thing is a test. And this is how we start to disassociate ourselves from our results. Instead of saying, oh my gosh, like this reel totally tanked. People just don't like me and I'm never going to show my face again. We just say, hey, it was a test. Yeah, I learned some things from it. People didn't relate to this, so I'm going to try something different. And I have this happen to me all the time. I remember last week I posted a reel and I remember in the first 2 hours, I think I got 3 likes. I was like, oh my God, should I just delete this? This is insane. And I was like, whatever, it's a test. This is me talking to myself, right? I tell myself the same things that I tell my clients. Okay, this is a test, whatever, we'll see. People didn't really relate to it. And it's so funny, overnight it got 100 likes. It must have shown up on the algorithm overnights when people were more active. And I woke up the next morning, I'm like, oh God, I'm glad I didn't delete that because that actually worked out okay. But everything we do is a test. So how do we remind ourselves that and just disassociate ourselves from our results? We are not our results. We are not the number of followers we have. We are not the number of likes we get. We are not the number of sales that we get. That is not who we are. And when you can really disassociate that and think of everything you do as a test, then you can come back after a quote unquote failure and just go all into the next test and just keep iterating and keep trying and keep doing more and more and more. And now you can see that this is the team that keeps showing up. Even though they're 5 and 10, they keep showing up. They keep going to practice as energized and amped as ever because they're trying their best and they're learning and they're figuring out how to be a better team, how to play better, how to show up better. And that's exactly what we have to do as small business owners. The next thing that I want to mention about potentially failing or doing something that just doesn't turn out the way that we hoped is super cliche, but it's cliche for a reason. It's a cliche because it's true. It's cliche because everyone says it and we just need to embody it. And that is that every single thing happens for a reason. And this is one of the biggest pieces of mindset work that we can really come to terms with because it helps us understand that if something didn't happen how we wanted it to happen, it was for a reason. 100% for a reason. And that allows us to disassociate from the results. It allows us to pick ourselves up and to keep back going. I would love for you to journal on this and think about all of the things that went wrong that ended up working out exactly the way that they should, that you, looking back, are so grateful that it actually didn't work out. And you're so grateful for that hardship because it led to new learnings, it led to other opportunities, it led to other doors. Every single thing happens for a reason. And I even look back to my corporate job and when I applied for a different role within my corporate job and I didn't get it. And I was so devastated. And then I applied externally to a different company and I thought I was a perfect fit for that role and I didn't get it. And I was devastated again. And then 2 months later, this role opened up within my company that was 100,000% better than either of the options that I was looking at before. And I came to realize wow, that's why those other 2 roles didn't fit. And this role that I did get, that I did accept, that was the perfect fit above and beyond what I thought the other 2 potentially were going to be. I learned so much in that role that I use now with running my small business. So when I say everything happens for a reason, you can see how I was in my corporate job. I applied for 2 roles, one internal to the company I was working, one external. I thought they were both going to be perfect. Neither of them worked out, but I got an even better opportunity in the company I was at that led me to learn so much that now I use on a daily basis with growing my own small business. Every single thing happens for a reason. And if you can truly, truly embody that, then when things go wrong, it doesn't even shake you. And I mentioned this to my clients too, and this is something that I learned from James. He says that we should be like a tree, so rooted in the ground, strong roots, a strong trunk, that, you have these leaves and you have these branches, and when something happens, you might get rattled a little bit. You might sway in the wind. Maybe a little bit of wind or tornado or rainstorm comes through. But that tree is so secure and so stable that it doesn't get uprooted. The trunk doesn't break in half. It's able to withstand any of these challenges, hardships, failures that happen. And when we believe that everything happens for a reason, that's how we start to build that really strong root system, that really strong trunk of this tree. Because when something bad happens, or our expectations aren't met, or we have a failure, or whatever it is, we know that everything happens for a reason, so it doesn't even shake us. Doesn't shake us at all. And this is where some of the spiritual woo-woo side comes in, that we have to have some sort of belief in something, if it's the universe or whoever you believe in. Because when you believe that everything happens for a reason, when you believe that the universe is guiding you to the right opportunities, then you just don't get shaken by the wrong ones. And I think this is really hard for small business owners, because we think that every opportunity that comes to us is the best opportunity out there. We have to do this. We have to try this. Now we have to do this. Now we have to try that. And we think that there's not a lot of opportunities out there. So the ones that do come to us, we have to do them. And we have to do them right. And if we don't do it right, we just missed out on the opportunity of a lifetime. But the truth is, if you believe in like the universe or whatever you believe in, the opportunities are endless. There is unlimited abundance and potential and ideas and opportunities and doors waiting to be opened in this world that we live in. So if an opportunity comes to you and you go all in and you try and it doesn't work out, it's going to be okay, because there's so much more ahead of us that's just waiting to be tapped into. Doors that are waiting to be opened, opportunities that we haven't even thought of that are in our future. So having this deep-rooted knowing that everything happens for a reason, this deep-rooted trust that the universe is guiding you, that helps so much with getting over failures or expectations that we didn't meet, or any types of hardships in our business, really. And the key with these concepts, which is the third one I'm going to mention here, is when you disassociate from your results, if it doesn't impact who you are as a human being. And if you know that everything happens for a reason, soon you'll stop looking at failures entirely. You won't even notice when you try something and it doesn't work. You won't even notice if your expectations weren't met, because it's just not even like in your vocabulary anymore. And that is 100,000% how I run both Product Biz Academy and Plant-Based Beauty. I don't even worry about if it's a failure. I give my all to something. If it doesn't work out, all right. Like, it's not even in my vocabulary. It's not even something that I put any of my emotional thought into. It's not anything that I focus on, because when you're so rooted in these concepts, then you stop looking for failures. You stop looking for proof or validation, or did this work or did it not work? You look at results in terms of like data to see if something is working, but you learn not to take it personally. And I know I mentioned this in the last episode about being in a sales slump, but this is so similar and so important, because if you can master this to the point that no matter if you're in a sales slump or not, you still show up 110%. That is going to be the differentiator, because so many people show up and have an easy time showing up when things are going good. But so many people, when they're in a sales slump, or when they hit a roadblock, or when they have a failure, that's when they start to go back in their shell. But if you can disassociate yourself from the result, if you know everything happens for a reason, then you can go all in with your business 110%, no matter if it's a failure or not, no matter if there's a sales slump or not, because you are progressing and learning and making moves. And that is how all of this comes together. And I want you to think about like a CEO of a business, of a, I don't even know the word anymore. What's the word? A CEO of like Fortune 500. That's the word. Think of a CEO of a Fortune 500 business. Do you think that CEO of that business on a weekly, monthly basis is crumbling because they had a bad sales day, is crumbling because they had a bad sales week, is crumbling because they had a bad sales month? No. The CEO is just saying, all right, what are we doing next? What did we learn? What's next on the table? What are we trying out? They're not rattled by the day-to-day sales. They are making decisions based on data. They are understanding that results are necessary. They are understanding that they can learn from results, but they're not rattled. So we have to remember we are CEOs of our business. We are leaders in our business. We are CEOs of our business, and we have to treat our business like a business instead of treating our business like our baby or treating our business as part of us or an extension of us. So I hope that all kind of comes together on how when we disassociate ourselves from our results, when we know that everything happens for reasons, that's how we can become so rooted in our business that failures don't even sway us, that we stop looking to see if it was a failure or wasn't a failure. And instead, we just keep going all in. We keep putting our best out there. And I'm going to bring it back to that basketball analogy. Even though a basketball team may be 5-10, that next game they're going to show up and play the best game possible that they can. They're not saying to themselves, well, we just lost 10 games. Should we really be here? Are we going to win this one? It's out of their mind. It's done and over with. It's washed out. They went to practice. They learned new things. Now they're back at it. And that's exactly what we have to embody as business owners, because we are always going to have these bumps in the road. We are always going to have lessons learned. We are always going to have expectations that maybe they're not met, maybe they are. But that is like the beauty and the fun and the joy of running a small business, because it's going to push you to be the best version of yourself, to keep growing, keep learning, keep expanding. So if you need a more tactical piece of advice, what I would love for you to do, I'm like a big journal notebook fan, and you hear me talk about journaling all the time. I have so many journals with so many different prompts and so many different things that I write in every single one of them. But keep a tally of your wins and losses. And I want you to be proud for every single win and every single loss. So keep it like a record, like we were talking about how this basketball team is 5-10. So maybe have a specific sheet of paper that has wins and losses. And at the end of the day, you write down your wins and losses. And if there's a day where you have no losses, no wins, that just means you didn't step out of your comfort zone. If there's a day when you have only losses and no wins, that means you're growing. That means you're trying, you're learning. If you have a day where you have more wins than losses, that means you're doing something right. And you must have grown and learned and gotten to this place where you are now. And every single step of the way, you should be so damn proud of yourself. So that is really what I want to leave you with today. This was a big episode all about basketball. But seriously, Tom Brady, I know he plays football, but I don't know why I always refer to basketball analogies. I played basketball in high school and I was the worst player on the team, but it's really fun for me to use those analogies. So I hope they are fun for you to listen to too. I hope this was an interesting conversation for you. I hope you learned something new. I hope you're motivated. I hope you are ready to show up for yourself and for your business. And I hope you are ready to brush off these quote unquote failures and just take them as lessons learned and keep on growing your business. I want to, of course, mention the offering that I have available for you right now. If you are interested in learning more about Etsy, I have my free Etsy training, How to Get Your Products Seen on Etsy, which is so important as we get into the holiday season. We have a few months to really oil up that Etsy machine so we are getting views, getting sales during peak holiday season. So I invite you to join my free Etsy training at monicalittlecoaching.com/Etsy webinar. This is a good example of how I started the episode talking about practice and then actually playing the game. This training is you playing the game, and you can really take what you learn and put it into practice in your business, in reality. And I hope that you take advantage of this free training and that I will see you there. But in the meantime, if you have any questions, please reach out to me on Instagram at Monica Little Coaching. And I'm super excited to see you next week on the next episode of the Product Biz Podcast.